Hello and welcome to the Man of Legacy podcast. This is episode number 16. I'm your host, Coach Dennis from manoflegacy.org. Here we talk about men, women, families, sex, masculinity, and life in general. So if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button down below. And that way you'll be notified when we drop videos or other podcasts. Today, I have two guests. Full disclosure, my girlfriend, Melanie, from Immortel Counseling, and she's a coach with degrees in psychology and counseling. And my good friend, Charlie McKeever from Happy Man Coaching.
Hello, everyone.
Guys, thanks for joining me today. And today's topic, it's not as much fun as talking about sex. We're going to talk about shame. And it's something that affects all of us. And, you know, Brene Brown, most of us have heard of her. She's a shame researcher, shame expert, which is kind of jacked up when you think about it. We have to have experts on shame, but we all experience it for different reasons. We often live or wallow in that shame, which is incredibly unhealthy. And, you know, I know the three of us have all listened to Men, Women, and Worthiness. What are some of the things, Charlie, from that makes you go, wow?
Just the idea that men and women experience shame, the feeling of shame, the same way. The triggers for the shame are different, but the way that they feel it, the feeling is the same, and it just makes it unifying. Very, makes it more of a common experience rather than just making it one-sided.
A human experience, not a man or a woman experience.
Yeah, a human experience for sure. And then just the idea of understanding that we can be into a shame storm. I love the Brene Brown talks about shame storms. That moment that we've been triggered into something, we're feeling shame, we're not at our best, and that's when we actually do the things that we feel least proud of. And being able to recognize that we're in that moment, that's like one of the biggest challenges that people experience. But once we can do that, then we can function a whole lot better. And I just love that she calls it a shame storm, because that's what it feels like.
Well, and we can stop the downward spiral once we're aware of it.
Right.
Because that lack of awareness just leads to it getting worse and you getting beat up by the person who should care most about you, yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What do you see with men, Charlie?
Oh, what do I see with men? Well, one of the most common things with men is that I love that Brene Brown says in Men, Women, and Worthiness, she says right from the beginning that she tells this story about how she's at a conference, she's signing books, she's signed some books for this woman and her daughters. Her husband's right behind her, and he says, hey, I want to talk to Brene for a moment. I'll catch up with you. And the wife is immediately like, come on, let's go. And he's like, no, I'll be there in just a sec. And then he says to Brene, he says, it's interesting that you talk. I love all the things that you talk about up there on the stage. He says, but my wife and daughter would rather see me die up on my white horse than to fall off. And then with that, he sort of walks away. And I'm like, when I heard that in that audio, it brought tears to my eyes, because that's so true. And it feels very isolating, very alone up there, trying to be that strong man, but at the same time knowing that, you really just want to say, this is hard. This whole thing is hard. And you don't want to fall off, and you don't want to die.
And that was the point where she realized she can't just study women in shame, and that she was kind of dropping the ball. And she would have probably continued to ignore men in shame, except then she was going to have a son. And she kind of figured out she's if we don't address it, we're actually doing the women a disservice as well, because we need to help the men.
Right, right. Yeah. So in that next piece, she says, she recognized that she needed to say more than just women. And one of the primary ways that men experience shame is that they don't want to be perceived as weak. And I could relate to that. I was like, shaking my head as I'm listening to the book. And then she said, there's that moment, whether it's in a football game or football practice, or, in the company of other older men, or whatever it is, that whole phrase of, don't be a pussy, that moment where you're feeling uncertain, you're feeling fear as a young boy, and then you express that, and then it's shut down, and you immediately learn that it's not safe to appear weak. It's not safe to express, your fears. And then she says, that what we do as men, as males, what we do is we take that and we convert that energy, we convert that fear into anger, and we say, oh, okay, well then I just need to push through, push past, push barrel over whatever it is that's in front of me. I can remember specifically being on the football field at football practice, being told that, get up on the line, being in front of someone who was stronger than I was, but still having to go head to head with them, and being told, don't be a pussy. Well, at that point, you're like, well, I have no other option than to just focus all of this energy into pushing this other person and not letting them push me. And that works great for some situations, in the football field, or maybe even in work environments and things like that. But it damages relationships because, we wind up taking and pushing through everything, and it just doesn't work for relationships.
Yeah, there's no shame with the associated with getting divorced because your wife kicks you to the curb. I personally don't know anything about being an incredibly angry man for a number of years and damaging the relationship with my children. No, I don't know where you're coming up with this stuff. I mean, we only see it every day in our communities with the men we work with, because a lot of it has to do with the self-talk too. And I don't want to call it the big lie, but what do women always say? They want a man who's vulnerable and open. And in the book, she talked about the time her husband did that. And her first instinct was to pick a fight. And he needs to suck it up, man up, and get, she wanted to pick a fight, and she knows better, and she's a shame researcher. It's like, what do the rest of us have as any hope if she's doing that? And I loved in the book, she called herself out for that.
Yeah. I want to hear Melanie's take on this, because this is definitely one of those things that we feel like it's a little bit of a catch-22, like it's a trap, like open up and share with me and be vulnerable. And then at the same time, when that happens, you're like, okay, I don't, I'm not comfortable with this. I don't like it. And why are you being like this? We at the very time that we open up and share, we get disapproval, disappointment, range of emotions. And it's kind of like, okay, I'm sorry I did. Never mind, forget it. And so guys will say, that seems like bullshit. And so, yeah, Melanie, tell us from your perspective what that looks like.
My perspective on that is that the women who struggle with hearing their guy when their guy is being open and vulnerable, they're not comfortable with shame and emotions themselves, and so, if they've kind of worked on that within themselves a little bit, or are willing to try, they're going to be more open and more willing to see that, because we are natural caretakers and we tend to want to be there, but we don't always know how. And so that's one thing that I talk about a lot in my practice when I see couples, is that really nuanced communication, to really explain, okay, this is what I need from you right now. So sometimes when guys want to try being open, they might need to tell their girlfriend, wife, whoever, this is what I need from you right now. Because then it takes the question out of it for us, kind of gives us a place to go.
Yeah. Okay. So I love that. That's consistent with what I have heard as well, in that she wants you to open up and share, but she does not want the burden of being responsible for handling your problems for you or fixing your problems for you. And I can totally relate to that. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. You know, I can sit and listen to Dennis, and Dennis can tell me something, but you know, now if he tells me that I then need to do something in order to fix his problem, I'm like, oh, okay, hold on. You know, like, I'm willing to help, I'm willing to show up, but none of us are beholden to anyone. You know, no, we're not beholden to each other, right? Like, I'm not, you know, if you know, if my wife said I want a Mercedes Benz, I'm like, well, okay, great. Hope you pick out the one that you want and earn the money for it. You know, like, it's not necessarily my job to give her one, you know. So
there was a time I would have bought a Mercedes Benz Matchbox car in my first marriage. And this is maybe why I ended up divorced, because I thought that'd be funny as hell.
yeah. So when guys say, you know, well, what it seems like bullshit, I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute. And this is what I've discovered, and it works really well, is that she wants you to share, she wants you to open up, she wants you to include her in your life, but she also wants you to have a solution to your own problem. So, you know, hey, I'm having a problem with Bill at work. He's really kind of pissing me off, but yeah, you know, I think I know what I'm going to do about it. Included, you know, let you know what's going on, but at the same time, not making you responsible for fixing it.
Right. Or, you know, and honestly, if you genuinely don't know, let them know that I'm working on it. I'm trying to figure it out. If you want some specific feedback, ask for that specific feedback. If she's got the emotional space to handle that.
I love what you said right there, though, just a moment ago, where you said she's got her own shame, right? She has her own, like, discomfort. So I think a lot of us walk around thinking that everybody else has it together. Everybody else is smarter than us. Everybody else is richer than us. Everybody else is taller than us, whatever it is. And we think that I'm the only one who, like, if people knew how screwed up I am, oh my God, right? And we're all walking around doing that exact same thing. So so many times we get super focused on ourselves and what we lack, or what we think we lack, or what our shame is, or whatever. And we forget that the person across the table from us has their own shame, their own issues, their own triggers.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I will say, if you have a relationship where both people have worked on themselves, the issue of being open, honest, and vulnerable is not really an issue, because we've both been on the other side of it. I know I don't have any problem with appearing weak or sharing or being emotional, but I also don't make it the norm, you know, because, well, at a certain point, anything too much becomes unhealthy. Water can kill you, as you know, if you're either drowning or drinking too much of it. So anything, even something good, and it's not that we have to regulate, but we just have to be aware. It's kind of like reading the room. There may be times your partner's not in a place where they can handle your vulnerability. So just, you have to have enough awareness of them and yourself.
I'll give you a good example of what this looks like. Some people might be thinking, well, I don't know, what does that look like? Well, you ever given somebody, like, told somebody you're an idea for something, like, I'm going to start a business doing XYZ, or I'm going to go on a trip, you know, I'm going to go on an international trip. And that person that you're talking to goes, oh yeah, well, yeah, that sounds risky, right? And what they're, and when we're taking that personally, right, when we're seeing it from our own perspective, we think that person is telling us that that's a bad idea and that we shouldn't do it. But what they're really telling us is that that scares them, and that they don't think that that's a good idea for them. And so this is the same thing with shame. You know, that person can be triggered and be in that shame storm, or be just uncomfortable. And the reaction that we're getting from them, we think is about us, but it's really about them.
I experienced that example. So you and I are going to hike across Spain to celebrate my 60th birthday in 4 years, the El Camino. And I told somebody about it, and they were like, oh, you shouldn't wait till you're 60. Like suddenly you'd be unable to, you could see they have some things in their head tied to aging. And I'm looking at, what do I need to do now to be as active at 75 and 76 as I am at 56? And I'm actively working on that. But it was fascinating to me that somehow the 60 number triggered in them that, oh my gosh, you can't do that at 60. You should do it while you're in your 50s. And I'm like, yeah, but I have these other trips planned first. I've got the next couple of years, kind of some fun stuff planned out. But I was aware of that. I thought that was interesting, because somehow that was like not doable at 60, but it was okay at 58, 59, 57. I found that funny.
Yeah.
We did mention shame's a universal experience. Men and women feel shame, just causes are different. And you'd had something in the notes, Charlie. We can only love someone as much as we love ourselves. And with that kind of goes forgiveness. You got to forgive yourself so you can truly love yourself. I think all three of us run into that, where people haven't forgiven themselves yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to think of it as being at odds with ourselves, being double-minded, being, oh, I want to do this thing, or I want to, I want to experience something, but then hanging on to something that actually gets in our way. And it sounds kind of counterintuitive to say, or maybe even cliche to say, you can only love someone as much as you love yourself. But I can't give you what I don't have. And if I don't understand, and I did this, I went to London. Dan Dorr was putting together a men's group in London. I was sitting there with 20, 25 people around this table in a conference room in this hotel in London. And when it came my time to sort of say, who I was and what was going on and stuff like that, I was like, I don't think I know how to love, and I was like, did I just say that? Did I just say that? Okay, I guess I said that. Yeah, I don't think I know how to love. I think I understand what all the versions that we all commonly see on television and books and stories and things like that. But if I wake up every morning thinking about what I think I don't have, what I perceive that I don't have, if my thoughts are dominated by my lack or maybe even my shame around a topic, how am I going to spend any time thinking about love? So we have to be able to love ourselves, and in order to be able to turn around and love someone else and know what that's supposed to look like.
You're so spot on with that.
I tell you what really grabs me, this whole topic, and I've run into this over and over again in talking with you, Dennis, and that is that shame is personal, and that something that's just maybe lightly embarrassing for me might be shaming for you, or vice versa. In most cases, when it comes to a topic like sex, a lot of the things that are not embarrassing at all for you are shame for me. And when we understand that, then we're able to say, oh, okay, I need to have empathy for the person that I'm talking to. I don't just go, what's your problem? That's not an embarrassing topic, because you may be in full on shame about it.
And you're right. It's so individualized. And I think that the mistake a lot of people make is they don't get guilt and shame right, you know. And I'm going to use the example we were discussing a little bit earlier. If you have a son who gets drunk, has a car accident, and kills somebody drunk driving, he did something very bad. That doesn't make him bad as a human, you know. I'm working with somebody now, a very young man. He did something bad, and he is struggling with shame. And my main focus is making sure he understands you're not bad. You did something bad, and you should feel guilty. And in the book, Brene Brown used a great example. Went out with friends, got drunk, missed an important meeting the next day. And the self-talk we have for ourselves is so fucking stupid. I can't believe I did that. I'm such an idiot. That's how we talk to ourselves. Would you let anyone talk to you like that? No. You did something stupid. You went out and got hammered the night before a big meeting, and you missed the meeting. That doesn't define you. You know, and I haven't ever thought about this. Right now, it brought back a memory. The big corporate job I've been building my career for in my previous life, I got it. $1 billion corporation, staff of 14, was tasked with doing something with one other individual. Understand the complex we were in had 1 million square feet. We couldn't find the meeting. We had a map and we couldn't find the meeting. And we spent a lot of time looking, and I got a text, an email from my boss to both of us, because it was something that we weren't at the meeting, and his only thing was, you blew it. And I never even thought about it right now, but I remember thinking, oh, damn it, you know, because it made me feel less than, and I'm like thinking, and I wanted to get defensive. We didn't blow it. We couldn't find the damn meeting. We did this, we did that. But I knew better, but that moment, I felt the shame of, yeah, I shouldn't have missed the meeting. We left in plenty of time. I still to this day have no idea where the meeting was. You know, it's like, I don't worry about it, but just because we do something bad doesn't make us bad. And I think that's a huge distinction for people.
Yeah, Brene talks about that in Men, Women. She says that there's guilt is I did something bad. Shame is I am bad, and that's a huge distinction. It's a huge distinction because, like you say, we could always do something that we regret, but it does not mean that that's all we are. Because if that's all we were, if that like nailed it right there, there would be no redemption. There'd be no way to like the very first rattle out of the box, we'd be guilty of something, right? We would be a bad person just for anything.
And for the men and women who may be watching this, do you want to be defined by your worst moment? And why are you letting it define you? Because you're not, you know, we work with men, Charlie, you and I, trying to save their marriage, really trying to save themselves. And we have seen all sorts of spouses. And the funny thing is, it'd be easy. And there are some versions of the manosphere that looks at women in a negative light. And I can honestly say that there are very few bad women that are the wives of the men we work with. I mean, like single digit, count on one hand percentage. Because what they are is they're good people who are struggling, who have made mistakes. Even some of the women who might have had affairs, they're not bad. We contributed, the men have contributed to what's led to that. But I literally think I can count on one hand, how many women I honestly would categorize as bad. And doing this for a number of years, talked to a lot of men. And what it is we're all struggling, trying to figure this out. And they're in pain and they're dealing with shame. And like a lot of us, nobody taught them how to deal with it.
So there's two books that you make me think of. One is The Masculine in Relationship. And in that book, if you get nothing else out of that book, it's hear their pain, not their blame. I love that phrase. The other book is Real Love by Greg Bear. And in that book, he says that everybody engages in getting and protecting behaviors, and that there's imitation love and there's real love. So imitation love is junk food and real love is vegetables, let's just say. And vegetables have nutrients and satisfaction, and junk food feels good, going down and tastes good, but we continually have to go back to it because it's not very satisfying. And what you've just said, that everybody's in getting a protecting behavior. Everybody's trying to source that imitation love because sometimes we don't know what real love looks like because we haven't actually experienced it before.
Well, and it's kind of goes to the I don't know how to love comment you made earlier. Sometimes the most loving thing is just being there to hold her and not say anything. Empathy. It's your secret weapon against shame for yourself and others. We've all done something we want nobody to know we've done. There's not a human being who can say otherwise. And that shouldn't define us. That doesn't make you bad. And the fact is we're all just trying to do the best we can. So as we learn and improve, we help men become great men. They learn a little less judgment, a lot more love, a lot more empathy, being kind, to high regard. Again, she's not bad. She's amazing. She's the mother of your kids. She may have done some bad things, but just love her.
I've actually been asked before, do you think, Charlie, do you think she's enjoying this? I'm like, no, she's not enjoying this. No little girl says, okay, now that we've played dress up and married, now let's play the part where we co-parent. Now let's play the part where we argue about everything, and you're you're a stupid bastard. Let's do that part. Let's play that game.
And everything's your fault, 100%. Nothing is my fault.
Yeah. No little girl's like, let's do the divorce part.
No. And I think something the men forget until they start doing the work is this is a self-defense mechanism for them, because they've suffered we don't understand often. The women have already grieved and suffered and mourned the relationship and where things are. And so when we get hit with the space, you want, divorce, we got a 3,000 square foot house. What do you mean space? And I think it's something, that we're clueless on for so long because we've never been taught.
Well, I tell you what, I want to hear what Melanie has to say about that.
I was just going to say, I think that, this kind of goes into some stuff we're going to talk about in a little bit, but, as women, we're kind of shamed for being emotional. We're shamed for being nags. We're shamed for that kind of thing. So the way that most women know how to communicate what they need from their husbands or boyfriends or whatever is something that we are traditionally shamed for. And so we kind of default to, okay, I don't know how to feel. I don't know what to do. And when you have like this mixed bag of emotions in that, have you ever heard anger being a surface emotion? It's like the tip of the iceberg. Like anger is easy default emotion. And so we tend to default to the anger, and then it just turns into this big ball of, negative feedback loop, I guess. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I was That's kind of what I thought of as you guys were talking about that.
So let me ask you, Melanie, I've heard this said before, and I kind of want to see what your take is on it. You know, I've heard it said that men have, like, we're single focused. We have we're linear. We have sort of one feeling at a time, right? We're like, I'm hungry, I'm sleepy, I'm horny, like that kind of thing. But I've also heard that women are like they're multi-layered. So they have multiple emotions all at the same time. So when he's saying to her, you know, just tell me what you're thinking, she's like, ah.
How do you pick it apart and deconstruct it? Because there's so many things there. And some of it may go back to shame from childhood. Some of it might be something he said last week. You know, some of it might be how you're feeling about your body that day. I mean, it could be any number of things that come up. It's like, so I have ADHD, and my son gave me this really awesome analogy yesterday that I think actually fits here really well. He said having ADHD is like reading a Wikipedia article where every single word is clickable.
Oh gosh.
And I know, right? Yes, that is what it is like. But you know, I kind of feel like it's somewhat applicable to this as well, because every, you know, the emotions just kind of like all pile on, and it's not easy to deconstruct that and figure out what you're feeling at any given time. You know, I have frequently, well, not frequently, but you know, when I have a concern or an emotion that I haven't quite figured out yet, compounded by my ADHD, of course. But when I have something like that I haven't quite figured out yet, I'll tell the person that may be involved in that, hey, you know, I haven't quite figured that out yet. I need some time to sort it out and figure out if it's a me problem or something that we need to address.
And I think we should jump in now to how shame impacts women, because obviously we have a contribution to that specific example. Do you feel safe with that partner because he hasn't engaged in bad behaviors of being critical and other things? But I think the men need to understand just how this also impacts women in general. What would you want men to understand, Melanie?
Oh gosh, so I mean, the way that you're raised is a huge part of it. Our culture and our society just kind of, I kind of hate to use that phrase even, but as women, we are told you need to be this, but not this. But both are okay. So, like, for an example, it's okay to be sexual, but you're a slut. If we choose to not display our sexuality and play it down, then we're called prudes. If we're a stay-at-home mom, that's wrong. If we're a working mom, that's wrong. If we get ahead in the workplace, it's assumed that we use our sexuality instead of our brains. You know, for being strong, for being nearly anything, there's shame from somewhere about that. And so women get it from like all sides. Now, not only that, but you know, Dennis and I have talked about how men are portrayed in the media. And I think it's fair to mention that, you know, if you take an event like the Super Bowl, for example, you're going to get two different types of portrayal of women. You're going to get the over-sexualized or the very competent, hardworking, you know, whatever, right? Where's the middle ground? You know, you shouldn't be this, but you shouldn't be this. I think it makes women afraid to be feminine. I think it makes women afraid to do anything wrong for fear of, you know, that negative feedback. A lot of us end up with a perfectionism and that good girl complex. And, you know, we just get so many mixed messages. And then when you add in like a religious upbringing, certain religious upbringings can be just compounded on that. Particularly a lot of women my age were raised in the purity culture of the Protestant churches in the 90s. And that's its own whole thing that brings a lot of shame around sexuality, but not just that, around femininity. And so we, if you kind of go back to childhood, and Dennis and I have had this conversation too, you really want your mind blown, ask any woman you know how old she was the first time she remembers being sexualized by another person. And most women are going to have something that ranges from like 9 to 13.
Which is disgusting. When the first time we had this conversation, I was like, what?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's true. It could have been an innocent comment from, one of your parents about development, or innocent, just kind of depends on how it was presented. But it could have been, something fairly innocuous, but then what's that?
A look.
Look.
Too long of a look.
Too long of a look, that lingering look. Yeah, I'm familiar with that one. It just kind of, we are then told that we did something to draw the attention and it's our fault. And the really messed up thing there is, as children, what did you do? As an adult, if you're wearing a parka, what did you do? And so, there's all kinds of shame coming from all kinds of places. And then religious shame, of course, just like it becomes a part of you. We don't always know how to deconstruct. Let me try that word again, deconstruct that kind of shame, because we think it's supposed to be there.
I'm glad you brought up from the time that a certain age, right? Because I always use 7 years old, the age of reason, as sort of a defining moment, that line in the sand where we go from just having pure joy, running and jumping and playing, and nobody has to sit us down and explain to us how to have joy. It just comes pre-installed. And then, like you say, at some point we start to wake up, we start to become more conscious, we start to go, oh well, when did all these other people get here? And that they're people at all, right? Oh, I'm a person too. Oh, wait a minute. And a lot of guys will say, like you hear that the women say that they know what a man wants. And yeah, because from, like you say, from 9 years old, there's been some kind of messaging, some kind of signal, some kind of whatever, right? And then we walk into the room thinking that we're hiding whatever it is that we're thinking, whatever it is that we're, right? And she's like, I know you, I've seen you, right? I've seen 1,000 of you, I've seen variations, I've seen all the variations.
But I want to point out also that it's not just within ourselves, because our mothers perpetuate that idea too. Our mothers, our female relatives, our friends perpetuate that idea. And, so it comes from, your mom telling you guys only want one thing, and
Men are bad.
Men are bad.
That message has been pounded into women. And you talked about the double standard earlier. You do this, you're a prude. You do this, you're a slut. The guy who sleeps with 10 women in a month is a stud. We don't speak positively of a woman who sleeps with 10 guys. You're right. And it is a double standard. We don't think about it from the other perspective.
Yeah.
And I think as we go back a generation and then another generation, I think shame was used in parenting more. And it's incredibly harmful.
Yeah. Well, look, pain is passed. Pain is passed from generation to generation. I got pain from my parents, who got pain from their parents. and so on and so forth. It just gets it just gets passed. We do it in a variety of different ways, which is why that age of reason is so important. Before 7, when we fall down, I scrape our knee, we're like, ow, that hurt. I didn't like it. And then the pain goes away. And then we go back to playing. We don't tell ourselves any sort of stories or anything. We just know that that hurt and we cried. Then after a certain age, we start to tell ourselves stories about that pain. Oh, I didn't like that. I don't want that to happen anymore. Oh, I'm not the kind of guy who, and then we start to tell our stories. And then we start to associate our pain with our identity. And then that starts to layer on and layer on and layer on. And the next thing you know, we've got so many stories of things that we're telling ourselves that we can't experience joy. We can't be loving. We can't be playful. We can't be fun, right? Because it's all layered underneath all of these conflicting messages that we've told ourselves.
I just am going back to Melanie saying how it makes women afraid to be feminine, which is their greatest gift.
By far.
I mean, good gracious, if you're too feminine, then you're not feminist enough. If if you're too masculine, the men don't want you. If you're too feminine, the women are like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Well, and the feminists have helped. While there is work-wise, I believe there is a fair amount of equality now. I know there's the imaginary pay gap that the feminists talk about, but the problem is the message now, I believe, has gotten to where women, if they're not strong, independent women, they're made to feel shame. And the problem is when they're in their masculine all the time, unless you have a man who's done some work, it's hard for the men to help you relax into your feminine. It's a gift they can give you. And I've seen it with a number of clients where, there's a wife in a very masculine role and masculine energy all the time. And they had to learn how to lead in such a way so she could relax into her feminine, which is her greatest gift. And then when you allow a woman to do that, she blossoms. And it doesn't make her less than, it makes her more. But I think a lot of people, society has got this all turned around. And like you said, if you're too feminine, there's something wrong. If you're a woman, I would argue, can there be such a thing as too feminine? And it's up to us to lead so that you can be feminine.
I'll give you a great example of that. Used to be that, in my full-blown nice guy days, I would just defer to my wife for everything. She seemed to have an opinion, and I thought, well, if I just defer to her and let her plan the trip or choose the curtains or whatever, that she'd be happy because she would be getting exactly what she wanted. So I'll just go to work and I'll make money and I'll provide the resources, and then she can do all the rest. And when you go on vacation like that, and she's planned the trip and she's booked the hotel and she's packed the groceries and she's got everything for the kids and she makes sure that the car is loaded up and that the pet is at the pet place where they can keep the pet, and that and then he's just like, okay, I'll just lift the heavy stuff, then she can't relax. She can never relax. She's always on mom duty. She's always on where are we going next? What are the details of our check-in? All of that stuff. And she can never truly be on vacation.
I would argue he has failed in his responsibilities.
Well, absolutely. But he thinks he's doing the right thing. Now,
whatever you want, dear.
Compare that to a recent road trip that we had. We took the RV. We both decided where we wanted to go, what would sound like a pleasant place to visit, and what we would while we were there. But I booked the accommodations. I made sure that I knew the route. I made sure that the RV was ready to go and that all of the functioning would function as it was supposed to. And then on the trip, I drove a portion of the time and she drove a portion of the time. But I only I waited until we got away from all of the traffic and all of the craziness before handing the wheel over to her, because I knew she wanted to drive it, but I also knew that she was going to be nervous about driving it in the city. So we had a great time. We went and hiked and did, just things out in nature. And then that night when we came in, it was dinner time. And so my wife and my daughter were sitting here at this dinette. I'm in the RV now. And I said, why don't you let me take care of dinner? And she said, are you sure? And I said, yeah, I'm just going to open up a can of beans and I was going to microwave some potatoes. It's not like I got it. It's okay. Why don't you and my daughter, why don't you two play cards, right? Just relax. Whatever. Yeah, just relax. Whatever you want to do, I'll just take care of it, right? And I did those things. And then after the trip was over, she said, thank you for taking care of me. She said, I felt like I really got to relax and enjoy being on vacation. Now, in my mind, I was like, I just microwaved some potatoes and opened up some beans, right? But for her, it was her opportunity to truly detach and truly be on vacation and not have to be responsible for everything.
I'm going to say so often when I see couples, this is like the number one complaint that many women have. And it's kind of a double-edged sword on their part. I don't think I used that metaphor right, but whatever. It kind of goes both ways. So, they want someone who can lead, who can be a partner, who can, do all of this. Often women won't allow their men to take a leadership role. They have to have control over things. And I'm often telling women, okay, what do you need to do versus what do you feel like you need to do? Because that goes into the perfectionism and shame as well, where we overdo and won't give you guys space to do your side of things.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because that was certainly a part of it. When I would say, well, let's go to wherever, right? And then she would come in and go, well, I don't know. We have, I was really thinking it would be better if we went to, and then you're kind of, and then as the nice guy, you're kind of like, oh, okay. Again, she seems opinionated. I'll just let her take that. I'll just let her take over that, right? And so, yeah, it's not without pushback, but there are times when it's like, no, I'll take care of that part. You do this other part, right? It's a collaboration. It is a partnership. Like we're getting ready to plan another road trip, and in the leadership role, I could step up and say, okay, here's all the places that we're going, and here's the timetable, and here's the schedule, and here's all that kind of stuff like that. But if she has no input, no say in any of that, then what's the fun of, there's no
Right.
no ownership on her part, nothing to be excited about. She's just being told everything. So it is a balance. It is a balance.
Well, and what Melanie described, it sounded like a man who's abdicated his leadership for so long that when you try to step into that role, first of all, you have no credibility. So you're going to meet resistance, and you've got to be strong enough to go through it. The other thing, and I address this, and you hear me mention it, women want to be led. Nobody wants to deal with a dictator or a tyrant. And that's kind of, when we talk about the shadows of the different archetypes. So for the guys listening to this, so not just vacation. I'm going to break this down to something you should be dealing with on a regular basis: dating. It is your responsibility to run the romance department, as Dr. Glover says, but on a date, it's your responsibility to plan it all out. That means getting a sitter if you need a babysitter. That means having a plan B and a C that you can effortlessly roll to. But you are planning the date so she is not feeling like it is work to go out on a date. So she can relax into her feminine. And you have zero expectations. Dating is about time to connect with the woman you love. There shouldn't be anything more than that. And again, I'm going to put in, like I always say, dinner and movies isn't a date. That's going to the movies, because you don't talk during the movies. So there's not a lot of connection there. Now, doesn't have to always involve, it could be going to the park, hiking, walking. I know somebody who arranged rock climbing as a date with a person who does that. It was one of the most fun times. It was the first time in ages that his wife allowed her picture to be taken. You know, there's smiles on everyone's face during it. You know, bike rides could be it. There's so many things. Don't get into this box of a date is this. And lead in choosing the restaurants. And, you know, I've got a bag, Melanie's. We will pull the random restaurant. I have a handful of restaurants in a bag. Sometimes we let fate decide, I call it. And one time we did that, pulled it out, and it was Mexican restaurant. She had had Mexican either for lunch that day or the day before, and I was aware of that, you know, maybe 2 meals. Well, that's not a good choice. So leadership is pulling something else out of the approved restaurant bag to see what else, because we can always go back to a Mexican restaurant, you know, and asking for input of your woman, you know, but it also means leading. And like I teach guys, if you're dying to go to this new sushi restaurant, you make plans. And on Friday night, she goes, I don't feel like going out. Sometimes that means you go out. You aren't asking mommy for permission. You were inviting her to join you on the adventure. You've got to lead. And I guarantee you, she will be pissed when you leave without her. And you will know it when you get back. They'll be toning, how was dinner, you know? But you weren't asking mommy for permission. And that's the mistake a lot of guys make, is you not only do you go to her opinion, you automatically think yours is wrong, or you won't ever stand up for what the decision that was made. And plan the rough outline for the trip, and then go, hey, there's a couple of things we can do. What would you like? You know, Melanie, we went to Estes Park.
Mhm.
Did I have an agenda that you had to stick to? This is what we're doing. There were some things we were going to be doing, and I told you. And what did you have? You had one request. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I wanted to go to one of the vortexes.
Yeah. And so we
that
did.
was Sedona. Hold
No,
on.
that was Sedona. I wasn't even going to point that out.
That was
But
Sedona.
in Sedona,
I did have one thing that I wanted in Estes Park, and I don't remember what it was.
it
But,
was the hotel, the Stanley Hotel.
oh yeah, Stanley. Right.
So we went to check out the Stanley Hotel, you know, because that was on her list of what she wanted to do. You wanted to check out the vortexes in Sedona, so we did.
Mhm.
You know, it's a pretty cool little day that was a neat little area too. We went up to,
It was beautiful.
So I want to bring up one thing, Dennis, about what you're saying there, is that, yeah, we're absolutely responsible for leading that portion of our relationship, being, as you say, responsible for the romance department. If we're not, if some guy is listening to this and he's like, crap, yeah, right, I'm not, he may feel shame about that. So the one thing that I want to caution is, don't feel shame about feeling shame, because we can certainly get into an echo chamber when we're like, oh, I feel shame around this thing. Oh, now I feel shame about having shame, you know, and I call it the monkeys. Don't let the monkeys come in and kick your ass twice.
Well, and if you were never taught, these are your responsibilities, don't beat yourself up over what you didn't know. Now that you do know, you have to work towards it. And for the men who are listening, who are in a challenged relationship, don't call it a date. Invite her out to lunch. Date, again, she has connotations, and that puts puts a burden or stress on her. Hey, I was thinking of going out here to lunch. Would you like to join me?
Yeah, I don't think that guys get that in the beginning. They don't understand the pressure. And Melanie,
Yeah.
you can probably speak to this more so, but calling it a date and then her having to say, oh, this is a date, and if it doesn't go well, then there's going to be problems, causes pressure.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add to that actually, just because I mean when I was married, I wanted him to take me out. I wanted it, and he would say, okay, make the arrangements. What? If he had taken some initiative, if he had done, some kind of planning, that would have made a world of difference for me. And I might have been able to lean into it a little bit. But the terminology around it, I don't know if we ever really use that terminology, but I can absolutely, I think you're right. I think that would add a lot of pressure if you've already got a preconceived notion of what a date should be.
So what do you say to the guys who say, but I planned some stuff and she doesn't want to go out?
I kind of gotta fall in line with Dennis on this one. Go do it. If she doesn't want to go out, you're kind of getting into territory of there's like a no-win scenario for you. So set your boundaries and hold to them. It's almost, this is a dangerous way to say this, but nothing else is coming to mind. You almost have to show her that, you are gonna do you. And just kind of let her know that, I invited you, but if you don't want to go, now, if you're, feeling like you are in a place where you can ask her for the input, ask her for input, ask for a few options. What are some things you might like to do? Find something similar, pick one of those, but make all the arrangements.
Yeah. She let's go to listen to live music. Well, if she's not in the mood to listen to live music or to be in a crowded space, yeah, it's not going to be well received. It doesn't mean that she doesn't necessarily want to go out. It just means that she doesn't want to go to that. But I do like what you're both saying though about leading yourself. How do we lead others? We lead others by leading ourselves first. And forever in a day, I held myself back. I had shame around this idea of spending time with myself, of just doing something by myself. If I was doing something by myself, then somehow I was doing something wrong. I was taking something away from somebody else. I should be there, next to that person's side all the time. And if I wasn't, then I was being selfish in some way. And it wasn't until I flipped that and said, no, I get to spend time with me. I get to go do things by myself. It's fine. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm inviting that person with me. And so what I stopped doing was saying, do you want to XYZ, right? Do you want to go to this thing with me? Because you got a 50-50 chance of that person saying no. But if you say, I'm going to this thing, and if you'd like to join me, I'm leaving at 7. Then that person can decide for themselves if they want to join you or not. And that's perfectly fine. They can say no, they have the right to do that. And we shouldn't necessarily need to take it personally because they made a decision for themselves. But we still go and do it because that's what our original intention was. We were going to go do it anyway.
If it's a great band, you don't want to miss them.
Well, and then to Melanie, to your point, there's curiosity. Now there's like a conversation. Now there's something new to talk about, where she can go, well, how was it? Who was there? What was going on? And you can say, oh, it was great. It was great. We had, and you can talk about it. And then maybe the next time that you make that same offer, she's like, yeah, I'll go. It sounded like you had a good time last time. I'd like to see what this is all about.
Yeah.
I want to hit on something, a couple of things you made me think of, Charlie. First, I want to share this. Does it show you, me, us?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Notice that the smallest portion is us. And when we think we need to be by their side the whole time, they have no room to miss us. It can border on codependence and be unhealthy. We're not going to have a discussion about codependence, but that's not abnormal. And for the men listening who have kids, if your wife says, no, I don't want to go, sometimes take a kid, do something fun. I would also say, if your wife is maybe not behaving the best currently and is being rather argumentative, you can do things with your kids and you don't have to include her. And she has to, and if she doesn't behave when you do include her, she doesn't get invited back. And then when she says something, go, if you want to join us, you're welcome to, but we're going out to have fun. We're not going to have a bunch of complaining and negativity, which of course might make her unhappy, but you need to set the boundaries. And
So now a lot of guys will have shame around disapproval or that confrontation that comes from, not pleasing.
Nice guy shame. Let's talk about that.
Not pleasing mommy, those
Yeah.
types of things. And what commonly they don't realize is that they have to go there. They have to have a boundary. They have to push through that moment of disapproval, that moment of pain, in order to get to the joy on the other side.
That's where the growth occurs. And yeah, some of this stuff is not always comfortable. It's not always easy, but there's a huge relationship with nice guy behavior and shame, isn't there? Oh, because it all comes to that whole approval thing, and we don't want to upset, well, if I do this, she might get mad.
So I want to shift a little bit. You said at the top of the hour that it was more fun to talk about sex than it was to talk about shame. So I'm going to share with you a recent shame moment from me that came up. One of the men in the community sent me a song from, what was his name? It's Wheeler Walker Jr. And this guy does crude country songs. He's talking about boobs and cooters and all kind of stuff in his music. And that's the PG version. And I just thought it was hilarious. I thought I grew up with country music. I grew up in a crude environment. I can totally relate and get it and laugh at it and all of that kind of stuff. However, because there's so many sexual connotations, because there's such a heavy emphasis on sex in the music, when I listened to all of the different songs, I enjoyed them so much that I when I went to the grocery store, I was going to buy supplies for a men's backyard barbecue. I put my earbuds in, and I was listening to it at the supermarket, and I was like, because I think this is fun. This brings a smile to my face. It just makes me laugh. It makes me all shiny inside. Until you're in the supermarket listening to this on your earbuds, and you're like, and there's like, you're on the soda aisle, and there's like little kids running around, right? Mommy, can we get the Sprite? Can we get the whatever? And then in your ear is, about singing about Puss in Boots and her bush hanging out of her Daisy Dukes, and you're like, oh my God, if anybody in this store knew what I was listening to, right? And then that welling up of shame. That welling up of oh, I would get so much disapproval, so much disappointment, so much like just all of that stuff that the nice guy is just like, it's kryptonite. He's just like, oh, I will do, say, hide, show whatever version of me that you need to see in order to avoid that discomfort, to avoid that pain. And I was like, oh yeah, right. That's what that feels like. Right. Because I've worked through a lot of these issues, but I was like, oh, I still have shame around sex. Okay. All right. So then just to round out the story for the audience, I said this to Dennis. I was like, man, I was, kind of like having the moment in the supermarket there, being kind of triggered by these songs. And he said, give me a call. Let's talk about it. And I said, okay. And what did you say to me, Dennis?
Well, first of all, and this guys need to realize this, because I talk with and work with guys on sexual shame. Between two consenting adults, there is no shame with anything they decide to do sexually. You know, and the song you sent me was "Sit on My Face." Funny. And it's crude, but man, I laughed my ass off. And we talked about there should be no shame with what my standard joke is there's no shame between two consenting adults. You know, my golden rules are nobody underage, no bodily fluids, and no large farmyard animals. There's no reason for shame if none of those are included, you know? And
some farmer out there is going, hold on, wait a minute.
All farmyard animals. Most people don't ever say anything, but I always just say large farmyard animals because, there's people from Arkansas. And I'll get a complaint on that now on the video, I'm sure, at some point down the road.
Leave your hate mail in the bottom there in the comment box.
Yep. I will not respond because it's called the joke. But we feel shame for expressing ourselves. And we got into a discussion and, where I said, oh, heck, if I'm thinking of Melanie and I end up getting a raging hard on, even if it wasn't a sexual thought, I sometimes send her a text. Just thinking of you, FYI, I'm hard as a rock. Can't wait to see you. Now, what did you say when I said about sending a text like that? You even could see it on your face. You were like, uh-oh, I'd get in trouble for that. Yeah. I might get in trouble for that.
Yeah, the idea of expressing that can be terrifying. It can be terrifying. It can be shaming, for sure. So I, for one, know that kind of stuff it gets in our way. It gets in our way of expression of who we are as a person.
And I am my authentic self. I know I am a tragically flawed human being, but I'm always working on improving, and I'm so much better than I used to be. And I could send that text to Melanie when she's having a bad day, having a bad moment. It is theoretically possible she could respond back with, "You're such a pig." Now, nice guys would feel shame with that. My response would be to go find a couple of pig emojis and go, "But I'm your pig. Oink, oink." I wouldn't care because I'm just letting her know that the mere thought of her made me excited. And while that may not be the ideal way, and that is not the only way I express that to her, I want to be very clear. But women want to feel valued, i.e. date planning, desired, lusted, wanted. And it's part of the whole dance of a relationship. Do I just send text like that?
Oh, no.
No. Do I occasionally send naughty text?
Oh, yeah.
But they are not the main percentage, Our communication isn't, I'm a pervert. And I take that with pride, where other men, if they're called a pervert, they feel shame and they shrink away. I'm like, you're damn right I am. But there's nothing wrong with that.
Dennis isn't an extrovert or an introvert. He's a pervert.
I'm the best kind. I'm a pervert. But with that comes love, empathy. It's part of me. It is not all of me. It is not even the main part. It's kind of like the you, me, us, and we have time we set aside. It's not like, okay, the majority of this, we've got to be having sex. It is about intimacy, connection. It is about caring for each other. And that's where all the magic is,
Okay, I want to hear what Melanie has to say about this.
Which part?
Whatever part you want to throw in on.
Actually, my mind is spinning, so give me 1 second to buffer here. You're familiar with that, right, Dennis? You see that all the time.
So while you're buffering, I'm going to tell you,
Thank you.
I did the previous podcast with Jeff Allen on sex, 3 keys to great sex in your marriage. And we talked about various stuff, some of the kinky stuff. We wanted to have some fun, be a little spicy. The greatest compliment I received off of that podcast, because I got some private messages, was from a man who said, what I really loved when you were talking about the BDSM and the kinky stuff, it wasn't about the acts or this and that. It was about the care and connection. And you could hear it, that it wasn't about, oh, I'm going to do this. It's about loving your partner and building connection. And it isn't about trips and tips, how to get this or do that. It was about the connections, what builds all of this, you know. And so, you know, Melanie's head spins somewhat because part of her is like, oh God, where is he going to go? You never know what the hell's coming out of my mouth.
Not wrong.
Yeah.
But actually, because you went back to that last podcast with Jeff, that actually kind of tripped part of what I was thinking, which is one of the things that Jeff was talking about in that one is, you know, women want to see themselves through the lens of your view of them. And that is so completely true. We want to know, how do you see us as a unique individual? And there's absolutely no shame in saying things, you know, that are sexual to your partner, because we want to hear those things. We want to hear how we're unique to you. We want to hear how we make you feel. You know, that was part of what was spinning around in my head a little bit. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, from my own perspective, I have not focused on connection enough in my relationship. So imagine you're getting one of those text messages, and that's all you get is one of those text messages all the time. So that's what she thinks. She thinks, just like Melanie's just said, that's what she thinks you think about her in its entirety. You don't have any other thoughts about her. She's not classy. She's not smart.
Beautiful.
She's not funny. She's not beautiful. She's not any of these other things. She's just a sex object. And it's like, well, thanks. You know, and then I know it's hard for guys, right? Because guys are like, yeah, I would love to be objectified. Do it. I love it. Tell me all the time.
I hate it when Melanie does it to me.
You know, but, you know, I'm sure that if all you ever got was your just one thing, you'd be like, well, but yeah, I'm other things too.
The lack of initiative creates shame in both people, because, you know, maybe you have some shame around sending something like that because you haven't worked on the connection. But then when she receives something like that, if there's not the connection, and that immediate reaction is, of course,
all he wants is, it goes back to those messages we talked about. You're just looking for somebody to fuck. You just want, that's all you think of me. And so we reinforce the negative by not working on the connection, because it comes down to, for all of this, shame disappears when there's good connection and there's love and empathy and high regard. Good connection and working on that connection can solve most of the problems in a relationship if you've got somebody that you partner up with well. You know, there are sometimes we've married somebody we shouldn't have married. You know, that's a whole different topic for another day, because, well, that was the next step, or because, you know, that seemed like the thing to do. And how many times have you known somebody, heard somebody, or heard a story where either the family or the person knew on their wedding day they shouldn't get married, but they did it anyhow because, well, all of this work has been put. if your gut's telling you not to get, and we're not talking cold feet. So if you don't have that situation and you work on connection with the woman you love, oh my gosh, the joys are unlimited. The fun you can have is unlimited. And I'm not even talking about the sex. I'm talking about being together.
I once had a realtor show me a house, and he said, okay, if you see anything in this house that bothers you, he said, let's just go to the next one. He says, because it's not going to get any better once you move in.
Yeah. But if you love the house but hate the color of the interior paint, there's things that you can improve on. And, you know, we've got to be honest with, you know, if there's something that's not working, you know, and again, don't fall into the trap of, well, we've been dating for this long and sunk cost analysis. We need to stay together. I put this much effort into it. Sometimes the guys we work with are better off after the divorce. They're amazingly happy either way, but sometimes that's the outcome. And there's no shame in that. It doesn't mean you failed. It just means that relationship, because you've done the work, especially, that relationship has run its course. It wasn't maybe destined to be a 50 years until one of you died. And that's not the only way to judge success in a relationship. So I think we need to start looking at how we shame ourselves, not talk down to ourselves, the self-talk. And we could just talk to yourself like you talk to your children if they were in the same situation.
Yeah, sometimes with clients, I talk to them about giving their inner voice a persona so that they can kind of separate a little bit and maybe talk back to that inner voice. You know, when you recognize whose voice it is, if it's coming from someone else, like my third grade teacher, love you, Mrs. Bueller, pretty unlikely you're ever going to see this. But she said something to me that stuck with me my entire life. And there were certain things that I associated shame with that, you know, idea. And, you know, so when I recognized who it was, I was able to say, oh my God, Mrs. Bueller, you belong back there in third grade, not here, not in my present life, right? But you can't always tell exactly where it comes from. If you can identify the negative self-talk and give it its own name, you know, maybe it's Hubert or whatever, but you have a chance to talk back to it, it's kind of freeing.
Cool. All right, guys, I want to thank you. I really appreciate both of you taking the time today. Again, Immortel Counseling, Happy Man Coaching. If you need to reach out to any of us, put a comment below the video, we will get with you. You know, if you are not sure how to find somebody, reach out to me. I will put you in touch with Charlie if you feel he's the person you need to talk to. If you want to talk to Melanie, or you feel that your wife would benefit from talking to Melanie, she works with women in shame all the time. This was not a difficult subject for us to talk about, because this is what she does all the time, what we deal with all the time. But it's important, because until we fix this issue and address it and deal with it, it hinders us. And it is a 200-pound backpack that's preventing us from being able to lead as men and free ourselves. Do you guys have any closing comments before we wrap it up? Does that work? All right. Thank you again, both of you. Love you guys. And everybody, again, don't make it worse by beating yourself up. And that shame of being ashamed, identify it, address it. And if you need help with it, reach out to any of us or some other coach. Just don't let it define you. All right, guys, have a great day and rest of your week.